when he's
Fonzie.
like, hold on, I want to finish my soup.
They leave. He's still eating, smiling, eating soup. He doesn't drive them home.
It's just him like laughing, eating soup. It's the fucking
the
weirdest Fonzie move.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, a show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode. If you're getting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Laverne and Shirley. Laverne and Shirley went 178 episodes over 8 seasons on ABC. They were talking about episode 1, which was called The Social Party, originally airing January 27th, 1976. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, the boys, Joe, Ferg, Nick, and Gordo. What's going on, guys?
Hey,
I don't vote-io dodo.
I thought you were going to go with fat. I don't want to wear Fat Sally's dress.
It's literally right above it. I was trying to figure which one to do. Fat Sally becomes a character, by the way. That's like a real character on this show.
You know, I didn't realize that this was also like a timepiece. Like, I always thought it was just like, you know, in the time it was.
Oh, well, it's a spin-off of Happy Days.
I know, yeah. You put that together and you're like, oh, duh.
What's interesting about this, though, Nick, is versus Happy Days, this continues to go through time. So, like, every year is a new year.
They time jump eventually. They, like, legit go forward, like, 2+ years when they move.
Yeah, like, by the end of the show, they're like, it's 1968, and we live in L.A., and you're like, this is totally different.
Their characters on Happy Days were like very different though than what we got here. Like,
well, this is like a true sitcom. This wasn't like a backdoor or like we're already going to give them a show, so we're going to sneak them in an episode of Happy Days, because there was like a lot of that stuff going on too.
But they are in an episode of Happy Days.
They were in multiple, but they were legitimate characters written into the episode without the idea of giving them a spinoff.
Right.
And then they just saw something in it, and then Gary Marshall and someone else, I forget, decided to put the show together. Here we are now with like Laverne and Shirley, which it's funny because Happy Days we covered it might have been like 101 or something like that. So it was like over 100 episodes ago, which is kind of crazy.
Also, 2 names that definitely fell off the radar. I don't know if I know one Laverne or one Shirley anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Laverne.
Shirley.
I knew some Shirleys growing up, but they were older ladies. I don't think they're on this plane
Surely
anymore.
You can't be serious.
I'm always
Don't call me
serious,
Gordo.
and don't call me Shirley.
Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this is for sure a S1E1 episode where we have a cast member of Christmas with the Cranks and a cast member of Little Nicky in the same episode. That makes Joey very happy. It makes me a big horny bird.
A big horny bird.
This is one of 8,000 like spinoffs that happened through the Happy Days family, by the way.
How many did Happy Days have?
There's Happy Days, Laverne and
Mork
Shirley,
and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy, Joni Loves Chachi. Is that it?
No, there are others.
There's the spinoff of this that's a cartoon from the 80s.
I wish they made one like what happened to like the brother. Why he just disappeared.
Just went upstairs and never came back down.
Blanksy's Beauties, Out of the Blue. Then they had the Fonz cartoon show. A lot of stuff came out of this.
We'll eventually, I'm sure, cover all of them.
Yeah, I mean, we could have did like a Happy Days. I don't know if that would have been like the most entertaining to a whole Happy Days month, but you know.
Milwaukee, they gave us Miller Beer, the Happy Days family, and
Kyle Rittenhouse.
oh god, I was gonna I was gonna say Jeffrey Dahmer, which I thought was dark, and you said Kyle Rittenhouse, and I was like, I can't even go anywhere with that.
To be fair, Jeffrey Dahmer is darker than Kyle Rittenhouse, right?
I mean, all the pictures I've seen of Rittenhouse lately, he seems to be very bright with some makeup on.
Have any of you guys been to Milwaukee, by the way?
I never have. I've always
driven
wanted to.
through it.
No.
I never like hung out in it.
I went a couple of years ago, like unintentionally. You know, we were going to Chicago, and then we realized flight-wise, it was an easier trip to just go to Milwaukee for the towns we were trying to get in, because it's only like an hour away from Chicago. And then we ended up spending like a little bit of a day there. There was a little bit of Laverne and Shirley stuff in a beer tour we did. And then we saw the bronze Fonz. There's a bronze like Fonzie statue. It's one of the TV Land statues that's still up. It's funny you mentioned Jeffrey Dahmer. We saw pamphlets for Jeffrey Dahmer walking tours, and I'm like, no fucking shit. It's the most creepy, uneasy feeling walking tour. Like, there's no way I want to see all these things.
Every single one of our significant others would do that.
They knocked down the building where he lived, but you can see wherever it was. I think the chocolate factory is on there, and then like one of the bars.
Willy Wonka's chocolate factory?
And Willy Wonka's bars?
Jeffrey Dahmer worked for Wonka. I love that crossover.
Are we talking just specifically Milwaukee or Wisconsin? Because wasn't that 70s show also they're Point Place, Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
And Step by Step.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The cheese steak.
But these shows, like the Happy Days universe, is Milwaukee. Like, very centered Milwaukee.
Which, before anybody says it, because we have to get out of the way, we all know is Algonquin 4.
The good land.
Thank you.
Damn it. Does this guy know how to party or what?
Wayne's World, I was going to bring up in a few more minutes. So
Me too.
It'll come
I
up.
was waiting for it.
And then real quick, I want to go over a couple quick numbers. IMDb has this as a 7.0. Rotten Tomatoes was weird. Didn't have like a whole series overall score, but the season 1 scores were 52% and then 50 audience, which I was a little surprised with.
That seems kind of low for such a legacy show.
Oh, can I vote it so it breaks the 50-50 tie?
We'll find
I
out.
guess, yeah. You're going to be the one click.
Which way will I go?
Check Rotten Tomatoes and find out. If you want to watch the show, you go on Pluto. It's available there. And I was kind of surprised that Laverne and Shirley's not on one of the big streamers.
Because Happy Days is, I assumed that all of the family of these shows would be, because I think Happy Days is on Paramount. So you'd assume that like this would be on there, Chachi would be on there.
I mean, these things are just on rotating license
That's true too.
purchases. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be on Pluto for the next year or whatever, and then it will move from Pluto to something else. Like, Home Improvement is on
Like 3.
2 things right now.
Yeah.
It's on Hulu, and it just got added to Netflix.
I think it's on Disney Plus as well.
So, yeah, 3 things. So, there must have been, like, some weird licensing, like, free-for-all.
Which is crazy because if you remember, that was one of the first shows we ever did, Home Improvement. And at the time, it was on no streamers.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly difficult to like find the episode to cover it.
It's been the kitchen show a lot lately.
Now that we're at a point too where they don't just like release every show. It's funny though, is they release every classic show on DVD. Like if you go to Walmart and you go to the DVD Blu-ray aisle.
Nobody does that.
I was going to say, Joe's the only person in that aisle.
I do every time. That's how I just bought the whole A-Team. I've been watching that every Sunday morning. It rules.
Oh, nice.
Joe and that one farmer who wears overalls.
That's just Joe in disguise.
I had a hard time too. I was holding Chips and the A-Team in my hand, being like, I don't know which one to buy. So I'll probably get Chips next.
Oh, you didn't want to spend the whole $6 and get both of them?
Like a DVD set is still like $30.
I thought you were talking about like a bag of Lay's potato chips.
That's what I thought.
I
at
thought
first,
so
but
too
it
until
occurred to
right
me.
now. Yeah.
No, Ponch and John Chips, one of the greatest cop shows of all time.
Does that show hold up?
No.
No. Yeah, I didn't think so.
But the fun episodes are still fun. The punk episode Chips is one of like the funnest moments of like 70s TV of all time.
Chips kind of has like a Baywatch vibe to it, doesn't it? It's just like cheesy,
Yeah.
like handsome people, bad acting.
Yep. And then like one car flips over every episode.
I don't know. I feel like I could still watch and enjoy the A-Team. I don't think I could enjoy Chips.
I will say this. I haven't watched much of Chips in the past few years, but rewatching the A-Team, it is still really, really fun. I was actually thinking of you. I watched an episode in the first season where, God, I can't remember the actor's name, but Nancy's dad in Nightmare on Elm Street was a
nice.
Jim Jones cult leader. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever.
So I do want to get into the episode because I think we got a good amount to cover. Real quick, though, S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to all our shit. Go over there, follow us on stuff, rate us, do all that.
Check out our new Schlemiel Schlemassel t-shirt that we put out this week for this episode.
This is a start with the intro. There's no early scene. That song, classic. We go back and forth all the time. You know, our big theme songs and intros necessary most of the time? No, especially in modern TV. But shows like this that have like those classic intros and theme songs, like, man, do they hit, especially if you haven't like watched it in full in a while.
And this is one of those songs that will live forever.
This intro gets shortened, right?
No. Well, the beginning stays in, and they definitely shorten it a little bit, and they also change out. You don't see their last names.
That was the thing that only happened,
Yeah.
I guess, the first few episodes. To not say just Laverne and Shirley, I guess at one point was that like it must have been pitched as the actual name of the show to give them the whole names. That would have been so weird.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's not the actresses' names, right?
Laverne and Shirley?
Yeah.
No.
Are those the names of the actual people playing them?
Yes.
So you don't do any, first of all, you're an idiot. Second of all, you don't do any research at all for what we do.
Are you really angry, Joe, with that one?
Well, I mean, it's like, and Gordo can be like quirky, but like Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams are just like, how do you not know who they are? Like, that's insane to me.
As a director, it's like just for everything.
I'm back end boy. I don't do research.
It's not about research. It's about being a human with a TV in the 90s.
And
Were you?
We all grew up together. We know all of this, and you know none of this. That should make you realize that you are the one who's wrong here. We all literally had the exact same experiences growing up.
Just so
It's
we don't
literally
waste
the
time
same.
on a future episode with the same conversation. Joni and Chachi, those are their names though, right?
no, that is Scott Baio and
Good luck with Joni's real
I was
name.
gonna say, I can't even think of
Isn't it
reality off the
Morgan?
I
top
can't
of my
think
head.
of it, yeah.
something Morgan, right?
Yeah, Tracy.
That bird's looking at me
Pumpkin
funny.
Escobar.
I gotta go out to the parking lot and pet my snake until he poops.
Well, everybody had a Tracy Morgan impression to do.
Is it Erin Moran?
It's Aaron Moran. All right, I was kind of close.
No, you weren't.
Yeah. Was not close to Erin
Yeah.
Moran.
So this intro, Making Our Dreams Come True, is the name of the song. The girl who sings it, Cindy Greco, did you see this? The composer of the song found her at Six Flags. She was like performing at Six Flags. And he's like,
How amazing is that?
Six Flags was around back then.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. Those were when they were like Six Flags over still.
I didn't know that. I thought, I mean, obviously they're an old amusement park company now, but I didn't think they were like that many decades old, you know?
Yeah.
Almost as old as Disney.
And remember, late 70s, not actually the 50s. So
That's true.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But yeah, the one in LA, he's just walking by and heard this girl performing. It was like, hey, I have like a gig for you. And then boom, we have like one of the most classic sitcom themes of all time.
I just can't believe they copied Wayne's World.
It's like, that's like, you know, just our broken brains, like, because realistically, I've seen Wayne's World 1,000 times. So when you see these clips now, it's like you associate it more with the thing that was parodying it. The glove on the bottle going through and them waving
Yeah,
at
that's
it,
the-
and then like the shot of them
I
standing
mean,
there.
that is evergreen. That will last forever.
I was gonna mention that the glove part when they wave to it in Wayne's World, it comes back behind them at some point, like it's still on the thing. And I was waiting for that in this, and it didn't happen. I was like, oh, what's the second glove?
Imagine so looking this up too again, seeing this show a million times, my assumption was always that they worked on God, I forget what you call it, but like, hey, that one has a mouse in it, take it off the line sort of thing, right? Like you're watching all the bottles
QA.
to make sure they're all
Quality control.
thank you, quality control.
Yeah.
But apparently they're bottlers, like cappers, but they're not anywhere near the cap machine.
Well, in the intro, they're all just kind of, I mean, they're like throwing suds on each other and like horsing around the brewery. So
They do seem like quality control.
Right? It seems like they're watching to make sure there's not like a finger in a bottle or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But then where did they say that they were? I don't remember them saying that they were in cap. I remember that they talk about the injury soon to somebody else, though.
They say the guy who drank the foam at one point.
And the guy who got a cap on his thumb.
Guy got a cap on his thumb. Yeah, so that's the capping department, but it doesn't show them like near the capping machine ever. I guess maybe their quality controls to make sure caps are on.
well, outside of the intro, we don't really see them working at all. It's to transition right out actually past the intro.
This entire intro is an OSHA violation. They're just like sticking their hands in conveyor belts. They're like on the front of forklifts. Like none of this would fly.
Also, I don't say this as somebody who likes to drink or anything, but if I worked at a Milwaukee brewery where there were just 1,000 beer bottles flowing by in the fucking 50s, I would have been definitely crushed by a machine. There's no way I would be able to not just like take a beer every 20 minutes.
I think like anything else, you get sick of it at some point. Although Maybe not everyone, but I mean, there's a point where it's like I'm sure like working at a candy factory is good, but then like, if you're on like 3 years straight of like eating a handful of like gummy bears, like you probably like, you know what? I never want to eat another fucking gummy bear again.
I don't know, if my job was as many beers and as many ham sandwiches as possible, I would be in hog heaven.
They're not going to be cold, so it would probably be gross, no?
I guess it depends, but they probably have
Some beers are bottled cold, aren't they?
Are they? I have no idea what the
Coors.
process.
Coors. Yeah, they had to hide how fucking gross it is.
That's probably my least favorite.
Coors is easily my least favorite. And I'm not a picky beer person, but I have a least
I like
favorite.
Coors Banquet, though.
But yeah, we see them. The episode starts, and we're hearing the whistle blow, and it's like break time, or the end of the day, one of the two. I'm assuming break time. So everyone's heading into the break room. This is Shotz Brewery that they work at, which is not a real company. This is like kind of a nod to the Milwaukee brewers like Schlitz and Pabst. It was like designed to have a similar name.
German sounding.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was real. I thought that's why Wayne and Garth saw it.
No.
Yeah, you forget, like, Milwaukee is just such a big, especially then, so many beers.
So yeah, I did in Milwaukee. Like we did that. We went to the original Pabst building where they used to like the original Pabst brewery. They don't brew beer out of there anymore, but like they have like it's almost like just like a walking tour, and like they teach you the history of, and we'll pour you a pint like in like the old like big meeting room and stuff, which is pretty cool.
I think I've brought it up before, but I'll bring it up again. In case anybody has a good hour to kill on YouTube, Ernest Borgnine made a documentary called Ernest Takes the Bus in like 1989.
You have brought this up.
Was that before or after he fought the troll?
I think this is post-Troll.
Okay.
But he goes to the Miller Brewery, and he's just such a sweet, nice old man. He's like, these guys are great. Let's try all this beer. Okay, I'm going to get back in my motorhome now. And it's the best, sweetest hour of old man television ever.
You can't call him a sweet old man when he went on television and publicly talked about masturbating.
I mean, that kept him sweet. It got all the evil out.
You saying sweet people can't masturbate?
I don't even want to follow this.
I was going to say, don't get yourself in trouble.
James went to
So
paint
Ernest
himself in a bad
Borgnine is
light.
a Google boy?
He is
I would
for
say
sure.
Borgnine is definitely a Google boy. Borg to Google.
So it's break time, and Laverne walks in, and she's telling Shirley that she has some gossip for her, and she's saying how the new guy at the bottle capping department, the tall one, he happens to be Tad Shotz. His uncle is Big Shotz Max, the guy, the owner founder of Shotz Brewery, or whoever the heir is now. I guess the current guy running it. She's like, oh, I know that. Like, how do you know? He spoke to me. Then they're sitting there, and eventually he happens to walk into the room, and he offers the 2 donuts and saying like, hey, I have this party, like a family party coming up. Would you guys be interested in coming with me? It's like, why us? And it was like, oh, well, my Nana doesn't think I'm getting along with, the people at this level enough. And, I need to prove that, like, I'm good with the little people down here. So maybe they'll transfer me out of this filthy department. It's like, oh, charming invitation.
Everybody picked up on who this was right away, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Who, Gordo?
Gordo. Who?
Ooh.
This is now, I'm curious if you watched this episode.
That was Tad Shott, son of Nanny Shots.
This is Lyman Ward, who is the dad in Ferris Bueller.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
How do you not know? We all had the same life. How do you not
Wait,
know
have
this?
you seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
he's gonna
Yeah,
say
he watched
yes.
it with all of us 7 times.
I'm fairly certain I've fallen asleep watching that at one
Just
of like
say
a
no,
sleepover.
Gordo.
Just say
Just
no,
say
because you wouldn't
no.
have fallen asleep at that good of a movie. Have you seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? He also has a great scene in that. He's the guy in the beginning. You'll never make the 8.
You've watched Transplants and Automobiles with me before. You may not remember it, but I know
I don't remember it, but okay. See, Ferg's my backup.
You retain nothing. You've seen nothing.
Gordo was in a
loser.
coma at Ferg's house, apparently. Once Ferg just watched a bunch of movies.
But we were all there too. We were all eating pizza and watching movies. And I remember Gordo actively being involved in conversation. I don't know what happened.
I don't retain this information.
he got kicked by that donkey. You don't remember?
You might also know him as Mr. Grady from A Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely a movie we watched at Ferg's also.
And we rented that one on a half day.
Mm-hmm.
Better than Faces of Death.
Man, what a bad series of movies I wish I never saw.
We were younger. The internet wasn't around. So, like, they weren't, like, one-off things that you just happen to see once in a while. You had to, like, seek it out.
How did we get our hands on that?
The dude at the video store just rented it to us and suggested a better one.
Yeah, you could just rent them back then. The world was different.
Well, the Vietnam veteran who lit off fireworks as a part-time job probably wasn't the best gauge of kids cinema. You know what I mean?
Remember when he almost burnt down Snake Island?
I do.
Yeah.
There was embers in my parents' pool for like a week.
So anyways, to get back into the actual episode again, because no one knows what any of the stuff we were just talking about is, he's going on, and it's like, come on, will you guys like to come? And Laverne goes, oh, I can. I already have a date with Arthur Fonzarelli. It's like, oh, well, you can bring him too. It's like Fonzie at a society party. And it's just, I know it's a spinoff and I know how these shows work, but it just felt like a little like,
Forced.
we can't go 1 minute without
Yeah.
it being like, hey, this is the Happy Days spinoff.
Just so you know, the Fonz is here.
Apparently in the next episode, too.
Yeah, they really
Yeah.
they really wanted to feed the popularity of that show into this.
It's funny because I always knew it was a Happy Days spinoff. I don't remember him in any of the episodes I've seen.
I don't think he's in any more than those two.
Yeah, they like lead in and then it dies down when the show gets its own footing and stuff, and they don't have to rely on that kind of device anymore.
It almost feels like a backdoor pilot because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to throw it in so early was a little like, we can't get through a minute without bringing it up, but
Like, that would have been really exciting in, like, season 3, episode 7. Like, hey, Fonzie.
I would have, especially because of how it pans out later, like, I think it would have been, if you're going to go this route, like, make it a fun reveal then. Be like, well, I'm supposed to go on a date that night. And you go, oh, bring them.
And then Cindy be like, you can't bring that greasy biker to dinner
And
with
then,
us.
like, when there's a reveal later in the episode, then it's like a little bit more like, hey, that's awesome, you know?
Like, they make you think it's Squiggy, and then it ends up being Fonzie.
Yeah.
Hello. Nobody's gonna know yet the whole time.
Well, we were going to
Wait.
get there.
Is his real name Squiggy?
It's his nickname, but in the show it's
No.
Lenny and Squiggy.
He was making
No,
fun
his
of
first
Gordo.
name is
Oh,
his
sorry.
first name is Squigman. Squigman Freud.
Oh, Squigman's World?
That was a psychology joke.
Cat ends up leaving. He had like left them with like the actual invite. And they're looking at us like, oh wow, look, the words even have bumps. Like it's like embossed. And then they see that it says formal dress. It's like, well, we can't go to this. We don't have anything we can wear. And like we don't have any money to be able to afford, to wear anything to this thing.
I like the side story where the words are bumps because they're braille and Tab
Yeah.
is blind and he just thinks that they're different people. He's like, come to the party tonight. These words have bumps.
So I don't like that they made me think this was a good guy and then immediately pulled the rug out from under me and he's a dick.
It was the line about the little people thing. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
like why it was like
Yeah.
he didn't need that line, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of put a bad taste in your mouth about him.
Yeah, I was like, oh, nice. He brought them donuts. What a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave that out. And then when he says real guests later, you'd be like, oh, he's a bad guy. And you
Yeah.
spread out the reveal.
So yeah, so when they're talking about this now and they're trying to think about like, well, what should we do? Like Laverne already doesn't want to go. She's like, sees it for what it is because of how he presented it. And it's like, oh, I just don't want to be there as a representative of the company. And, we see Shirley as a little bit more of the dreamer and she's just like really wants to go to a party of like this magnitude. So they're just kind of going back and forth about this. Like, oh, please, like, I really want you to go. So, this would be such a great opportunity. And she's like begging her and all the other guys in the break room are like staring at her now because he's like legit begging.
All of these break room scenes too, going back and watching stuff later, I realize how much both Grace Under Fire and the Wellman Plastic Years of Roseanne took from the Shotz Brewery break room. Like it feels so much, especially Roseanne. It feels like just like you're in that same break room.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, in pieces of the set might be. That's the thing about these shows.
That's
It's
true.
always so funny. Eventually, she's like, all right, like, I'll go with you. Now, we get to the next scene, and they're inside of, it's like a pizza shop where they like hang out and grab some food after work. As we go into the inside of the shop, before the girls walk in, this is the first time we see Lenny and Squiggy. Michael McKean, David Lander play Lenny and Squiggy, who these are characters that they had written before for other things and then used on the show. Only Squiggy's name wasn't Squiggy, it was like Anthony. But they they transition like those characters that they used in like sketches or whatever and put them into the show.
And their album, by the way, is so fun. There's a Lenny and the Squigtones album, which is them live. They do Lenny and the Squigtones as a band on Happy Days. I'm sorry, on Laverne and Shirley a few different times. And then they're on like American Bandstand. But the album, it's just fun. Like look up like clips of them doing that. And the Lenny and the Squigtones record is probably the closest first incarnation of Spinal Tap ever, because it's Christopher Guest and Michael McKean playing.
Ferg, I didn't really think about this, but you're the only person who might understand it. But don't, if anybody's ever watched the show Chuck, we've discussed it before, but aren't Jeff and Lester kind of like Lenny and Squiggy?
Yeah, they're very similar.
They're definitely at least based off of it, maybe.
Just the sleazy duo type.
I miss a character catchphrase.
I miss a good catchphrase. You know,
Like Squiggy could just come in and go, hello, and the crowd loses their fucking mind. Like we've lost the ability to have that much of like a simple joy.
I feel like they don't even really try to like some of the more modern shows. I don't think has much of that anymore.
yeah.
Like I don't even think there's like attempts, like not even like failed ones where you go like, oh, I see what you're trying to do.
Right. I mean, I feel like this was organic too, though. That was just the character and it took off.
Yeah, that's
you
just
know?
how things work after a while. Yeah. I was gonna ask. You brought this up earlier, and Gordo, we've been giving you shit already this episode. Did you at least recognize Michael McKean when he popped up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you knew anybody, you have to know him.
I did, and it took me a minute to realize who it was because it's been so long since I've seen this show.
And Spinal
Right, I
Tap
didn't-
actually was made in the middle of when this show was in its run.
Yeah, so that's like what, 82?
Yeah, he had to take like
Yeah.
time off from the show. He only did a few episodes one season because of Spinal Tap, which has the link too because of the director of Spinal Tap. It was married to Laverne.
Yeah, Rob Reiner. And also, Michael McKean has a cameo in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles as the state trooper who pulls him over and takes their burnt car away.
Squiggy has a cameo in Scary Movie. He's Principal Squigman.
He does. I love that.
Oh, that's right.
right. And Michael Lander, R.I.P. By the way, there's a lot of R.I.P.s. In this
Yeah, basically the only person who's still alive is Michael McKean.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot to look if Carmine Raguzzi, the big Ragu, is still alive because he's not in this episode, but I don't think so because I feel like
No,
we've seen
he's
him, yeah.
passed too. They're in there, and then Squiggy's like, we see Lenny and Squiggy. Squiggy's like playing it's like an arcade driving test game, and that took me off. I was like, did those things exist like in the 50s?
I had the same thing. I was like, this seems way too early for a game like that in a bar.
I think it's like it's not as technologically advanced as you think it is.
But even video games in general, we're talking like really their infancy in the 50s.
Yeah.
I would have just thought it would be Pong.
Yeah. To see that's what threw me. If I saw like a regular cabinet and it was like a classic game, I wouldn't think much of it.
I think Pong was the 70s.
Yeah, this is 58.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is this game that he's playing? Like,
I don't know. Is it like the vibrating bed? I think the vibrating bed was there. Maybe you're just on a car and it vibrates when you turn the wheel.
so he's playing that. It did throw me a little bit, but for the sake of argument,
The first arcade cabinet to come out was in 1971, according to the internet.
then whatever this thing is.
I mean, according to Google, the first video game was born in 1958.
And Squiggy had it in his pizza shop. Yeah,
But it was a game called Tennis for Two. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think this thing is actually a video game. I think it's because if you see him turn the wheel, the whole thing moves. I think he's just like moving an arrow between like lights or something. Like, I don't think there's a screen on this.
This is probably because it's 1958. This is probably like the dad takes his kid begrudgingly to the bar he gets drunk at and is like, go sit in this car and turn the wheel. And like, that's what this game is for.
Yeah. So whatever it is, I'd be interested to know more about it. But I guess that's for another day. And but he's playing on it as they're doing it. You see Laverne and Shirley walk in, and they don't want the guys to see them, so like they kind of like turn their backs and try to sneak by. And that obviously didn't work. And then they turn and like Lenny and Squiggy run up to them, and they're trying to like get the girls to go on like dates with them. And like you're getting like a good like they have like that old we talked about. It's like they're a goofy duo, but they're like greaser types. They'd be like if you think of Grease, they'd be
Hulk
like
and Skull.
they'd be like they would have been like the rejects who like they wouldn't let in the T-Birds.
I do love Bulk and Skull though. This is like a non-weird, like Bulk and Skull are kind of weird, like Hesher punk guys in a weird way. This is kind of like the 50s Bulk and Skull, like rockabilly rocker guys. I always loved too that Michael McKean didn't wear a leather jacket. He wore a baseball jacket. Like I like that they don't make him, like they make them both like have their own separate identities for their clothing.
Yeah.
They're like two different warriors gangs.
Yes.
They hang out together.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Squiggy's on roller skates somehow. It's like, I know, I can't stop.
I liked, when they, the idea of the date was like, hey, there's like a great makeout picture playing at the drive-in, the robe. It's like, oh, no thanks. We're going to the formal society dinner thing. It's like, oh, pardon me, ladies. He goes, yeah, I would have worn my tuxedo, but my polo pony ate it.
I laughed so fucking hard at
Me
that line.
too. That's my favorite line of the whole show.
Like I literally wrote like an actual lol in my notes because I was laughing out loud when he said that.
Is The Robe a real movie?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and then I like it because they get back into it in a second. Later on, just skip ahead a second, like they call him back. It's like, hey guys, and he's like, oh, change your mind about the robe? And they go, no, it's about dresses. He's like, oh, I thought it was a religious picture. It is.
It is, yeah. It's a Richard Burton, like back in the 50s when there's all those like 10 commandments.
But I like the idea that, yeah, he misunderstood and they thought that the robe was about a dress. Which it was actually really, looking back, actually, it's a really crafty line, the way it works, is they're talking about dresses. So
The writing is so good, but I also love too, like going to see a 4-hour, like Middle Eastern Jesus epic of the robe, being like, this is a makeout movie. It's so fucking funny to me.
But the reason that they did call them back, we found out a minute prior, is basically like Lenny and Squiggy seem to know everybody, so they're thinking, hey, they might be able to find us dresses somehow. So like it's at least, it's at least worth a shot to try to see if maybe they can acquire a couple for us.
This is a weird setup too, because I feel like this episode makes Lenny and Squiggy way more nefarious than they actually are later on.
There's something that we'll get into it because it's at the end of the episode. I don't want to jump the gun too much, but something about the way it played out that I didn't like, because it just, it was very open-ended, but we'll get into it later. They're asking the boys like, hey, can you find us some dresses for this party tonight? And they give them their sizes, and it's like, well, what's in it for us? Like $1. It's like, no, we want something we could divide. And like, they do the whole bit where they have to explain, and like, all right, we'll give you 50 cents each then.
$1 then would have been $11 now.
Ooh. To just find them the dresses, I guess isn't that bad. It's the finder's fee.
Yeah, but then when it gets down to $15 to pay them, that ends up being a pretty expensive rental.
Yeah.
You're going to turn them down for dates and be rude to them and then ask them to help you.
They should have been to go on the date for free and have them get dresses. If you can get us dresses, we'll go on a date with you.
I thought that's what it was going to be.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, that could have easily been what they did to lure them in. And then the episode could have just ended on something simple with them showing up with like flowers like at the house, and then them like slamming the door in their face and like
It could have been like, or like Shirley, I wanted to be high society, and then like shows them dancing with Squiggy on the dance floor instead.
Yeah.
It's like, ah.
I like the idea of nothing is lower than high society than dancing with Squiggy. Check out our new Dancing with Squiggy t-shirt available soon at S1E1.com.
Shut up and take my money.
so they make the arrangements and the deals for them to get the dresses. And we cut to later on, and the two girls are at their apartment, which was actually, we talked earlier about like sets being reused. This was the old Odd Couple apartment.
Oh, neat.
And this is from writers and creators of The Odd Couple too, so that totally tracks.
So another show that like we definitely need to do eventually. We're talking off air. There's so many classic shows we haven't touched.
To,
we really need
to
to
be honest with you, I want to cover that just so we can do the modern one, because I watched the modern one. It's terrible, but I would love to cover it on this show.
The Matthew Perry one?
Yeah.
Oh man, I really want to hate watch that.
Wasn't that a
episode.
movie?
Yeah.
It's also a movie, yes, with Walter Matthau.
They did make a movie too, but they used the same actors for the movie. It's Walter Matthau and
Jack Lemmon?
Jack Lemmon, thank you.
Oh, Grumpy Old Men?
Whose son
Yes.
was Hulk Hogan's partner in Thunder in Paradise.
There it is.
Worked wrestling in somehow.
So the two of them in their apartment, and Shirley's on the phone, and she's calling a cab while the two of them are both like in their bathrobes getting ready. And they're calling, all right, cab's gonna be here at 8. Fonzie's going to meet us there after work. And it's crazy because at this point, like, they don't even have dresses secured yet. They don't even seem nervous. Like, I hope the boys pull through. Like, there's like,
no sense of urgency. Yeah.
yeah, cab's on the way and they're in bathrobes.
I will say this though, even when I was at my like youngest and poorest living on my own, if somebody said like, hey, you have to go to like a wedding or a funeral or something, like I could pull together a shirt and a tie at least. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they should have something they can go to a party with.
But do you have formal attire, like high society formal attire?
I guess not high society. Yeah, that's fair.
It's a different, like, yeah, we all have something that we could cobble together for like a wedding or whatever. But like, if like the mayor invited me to like a party, I wouldn't know what to wear.
If the mayor invited me to a party, I would show up exactly like I'm dressed right now. That is not a high society thing to me.
Well, that's because it's a farmer and your neighbor, but
it's actually a giant moose that controls the weather from the top of a mountain.
I feel like they could have suckered this boss guy into buying them dresses. If they're like, oh, we'd love to go to your fancy party, but we don't have anything to wear.
Right. He's at the disadvantage here because he needs them there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I will say it would actually tie into the reveal later much better if that was how they procure those dresses. But I don't want to get into it too much because of it is a reveal for later. But real quick, before we move past this, Joe, if you got invited to a formal event, you said, you have something, but they told you you are not allowed to wear a button.
I would probably like Shark Tooth one.
Is this fancy thing in Amish country?
I mean, I have nice... I won't put a button on my really nice suit coats.
Oh, wrong kind of button.
When was the last time you had to get dressed up and you didn't sneak a button on? Like, no button.
My Nana's funeral service, probably.
Probably, you're not even sure if you didn't wear a button.
But there may have been one under my sweater. I don't know.
Yeah, like you need one even if no one knows it's on.
Yeah, it's like a security blanket thing. Like if I can't leave the house without... Sometimes I've not even realized before. I've bed places before, like take it off like a sweater or a sweatshirt, and then I have a t-shirt on, and there's like a button on the t-shirt. It's like I didn't even put that on purpose. Like my brain was just like, you can't leave without like a weird 3-inch circle of some dumb shit on your left shoulder. It's just how I am.
You're so quirky.
I'm so quirky. I wish I could play the ukulele.
In theory, you can play the ukulele.
I was going to say you can.
I mean, I
wouldn't take you that long.
Yeah, I play enough instruments I can probably figure it out, but I refuse on principle.
The two of them are getting ready, and they're starting to have this conversation about like meeting like high society men at this party. And Laverne's saying like, oh, well, the only reason like any high society gentleman would go out with, one of us would be for one reason, to have a good time. And then some of that little vodio do do, like whatever. Shirley's like, I don't do vodio do do. She's like, you do vodio do do. It's like, I don't vodio do do. It's like, you vodio. She's like, once.
And now, not to be crass, but we're assuming that's maybe like a handy.
Sure. I mean, like, vodio versus vodio do do. I get somewhere in that realm, probably.
I think vodio is one thing, vodio do is one thing, and vodio do do is around the world.
And she's like, once, and I was going steady for a whole year. This is a different time where, like, at least in these shows, the way things are presented, listen, crazy shit actually was happening. It was just more taboo to talk about. But, like, back then it was very important, like, oh, so-and-so went all the way. Like, that was, the vernacular at those times. It was seen a lot more taboo.
I love the insanity of that shit, though, because if you look back at, like, probably every one of us has a grandparent who like had a kid super early, right? It's like, oh, they vodio dodoed at 17. Like, it's
but
not
they
like
all got
society...
married. Like they got married super early. And
of course, sure.
So
God
God was totally
like,
on board. Yeah,
it's not like society was like, this doesn't happen. They just lied about it happening.
And then here you have two girls who are like in their 20s and living on their own, and it's like, I don't do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's just a totally different world these days.
And these are girls who work in a brewery and they hang out at the pizza bowl. They vodio dodo.
Yeah. And she's saying how she has a spotless reputation. And you get Laverne with the raspberry and the and she's like, I hate when you make that sound. You did it on the bus the other day and the poor bus driver pulled over. He thought he had a flat tire.
That's a funny joke, but like, wait, what?
Yeah, he's like, wait a minute.
That must be my tire.
Reality would be like, did I just fart?
58, the reality is like, did a person of color just go beyond the back of the bus? I'm pulling over right now.
And she's like, continuing to get on Shirley too. Like, so if you meet this nice guy at a party, like you think he's going to just marry you? And she's like, well, you never know. Like, there's always a chance that like, something nice could happen in something like this. And it just kind of goes into like, they're two characters in the big difference, at least how they're being written here, where you see Shirley again as more the dreamer and like, this big opportunity and what could be. I don't want to say Laverne as the realist because nice things can happen, but she's, a little bit more cynical, I guess. Yeah. And that's just kind of like, just the way those two interact throughout the episode and just kind of the big difference between them.
They do a good job though of setting up their dynamic here of like how both operate and how they both kind of need the codependency of each other to ground each other.
This is when they're trying to Shirley's trying to get Laverne to sing High Hopes with her, trying to talk about just kind of staying on the positive side. And if I read correctly, this is not time accurate. I believe the song was not released yet.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Which is funny because they go to it like twice. It's a big part of the episode, and they didn't do their due diligence to make sure the song was released when the episode would have taken place.
Can you imagine the writers like thinking that in the writing room though and being like, no one's gonna watch this ever again or think about it. It's 1978. Yeah. Like, guys, get over it. And 40 years later, a bunch of fucking dickheads are like, this is bullshit. That song wasn't even out yet.
When it gets to but he's got high hopes. And she goes to Laverne and goes, he's got what? A hernia.
They do a good job of setting this up too for a callback later.
I like when Goofy sings it in a Goofy movie.
Do you know Goofy doesn't bang? He
Where are we going with this, Gordo?
He yucks is what he was gonna say, but he giggled before the punchline.
How's the joke supposed to go? He doesn't bang, he yucks.
He yucks.
Gordo's soul's going to escape like one of the weasels in Roger Rabbit right now. It's just like the end of his entire life.
Imagine how good it would feel to have anyone in the world find you as funny as Gordo finds Gordo. Like how good that would feel.
That's all right. That'll be the clip for next week. So
they're talking about like the idea of like finding like Prince Charming. It's like, well, you never know. Like Prince Charming could be walking through that door like at any moment. Of course, that's when Lenny and Squiggy walk through the front door. And they run down, it's like, oh, we got the dresses. And they're, really excited. And they're legit. They're like nice looking dresses. And it's like, but you can only rent them. My uncle needs them back Monday. They're from the Wax Museum, which seems like legit.
Yeah, I never questioned this once. I was like, oh, they're like weirdo dudes and they have like their weird, not illegal means of doing things.
It seems like a crafty workaround of how to acquire a couple dresses.
And that's a lot funnier than the actual thing that
Yeah,
happens. Like,
the
I wish
actual
they
is
just
like
stuck with that.
yeah.
too dark and weird. Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's dark.
It paints them in a different light
Yeah.
than what we're seeing here. We need him back to put on Ann Blythe and Donna Reed, not the real ones, the wax dummies. He was saying something about how like people don't like looking at naked wax, but they're like, well, how much do you want for these? It's like, well, he goes to say $5 and he gets a little nudge from Lenny and it's like $15. Like, all right. So they give him the $15. And like, I felt like that was, well, I guess like in the initial transaction, there was a finder's fee. And then now this is a rental fee on top of the $1 that they get.
But just for how insane this is, $15 in the inflation calculator is $165 now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
That's a lot of money for renting a dress a night.
For 2 dresses, well, if you rent a tuxedo, it's like $150 on the low end. But in this case, like, I think they were at a point where they didn't have money, and that was the whole reason for them going through outside means.
It's so tough to talk about without revealing what happens later. But
I
like
know.
between us knowing what happens later, why is there the time frame on it that they need it back by Monday if their story isn't real?
Yeah, that's why we'll get into it a little bit later, but I felt like that was kind of a big hiccup in the story in general that just kind of made it rose too many questions in my brain.
Yeah. We need them back by Monday. Like,
Yeah.
why?
So we're cutting forward now. Now we're at this party. It is very formal. It was one of those ones where, like, you know, the butler announces everyone into the room, which made me think of, was it like when Andy had the garden party?
How to throw a garden party.
Yeah. And Dwight, had to announce everybody as they were walking in and out, which is funny because, like, in my mind, like, I didn't realize how, like, much truth was in that, but this is how these parties seem to be.
Well, there is and there isn't, because if you remember, I could be remembering this wrong actually, but he does that because Jim tricks him.
Jim tricks him
with like a fake book about gardening.
Yes, he wrote a book and put it on Amazon.
Yeah,
but it's also what we're seeing really happen at a formal party, like in this situation. So it's not like, yes, he pranked him, but this isn't the wildest thing he could have put in there.
Right.
Yeah, like I've seen this in other things other than this and The Office. So it's based on reality.
And this is why we don't have clothes to go to a party like this, because we don't even know how these parties operate.
In regular life, though, I would say this is probably something we've all only experienced at weddings, where it's like, Mr. and Mrs. John Smith, get on your feet. And then you're like, all like the fucking, like, that's basically the only way people like us see that shit.
Did you pick that song because of Parks and Rec?
Yes, I did.
I was going to say, now we find out what Joe really wanted his wedding song to be.
I didn't want the second half of Rocky Queen from Guns N' Roses. I want.
Isn't it also the song that plays when Steve Ballmer goes nuts at Microsoft? Remember that video where Steve Ballmer's just like, he's the CEO of Microsoft at the time, and he's just going nuts. And I think that's the song that's playing.
Like the reveal,
That Gloria Estefan.
They get announced into the party. Miss Shirley Feeney and Miss Laverne DeFazio. And then they slowly like walk into the room because they don't know what to do. You have like Laverne does this like little like kind of curtsy bow. She's like, so they're so lost in this moment. They're like, do we tip the guy? It's like on the way out. And they go, we'll get you later.
That is a tough situation though when you're in a place where you're like, do I tip? And when do I tip? Like that's always a weird thing. Like the worst is and again in our lives, not often, but like when there's a bathroom attendant, you're like,
hate him.
Do I tip every time? Do I tip at the end?
I hate it. It's the most unnecessary, like, I'm all for tipping people, but I don't want
tipping.
you to help me here. Like, I don't even want this. So it's like, now I'm forced to give you money because I had to piss.
Because you handed me a paper towel after I washed my hands. Fuck you. I'm not paying you.
But you feel obligated, and it's somebody's job, so if you want to, but like, can you just give him a 20 at the end?
That's his life choices. That's not my fault.
I've done that before. Actually, I've done that at the strip club in Rhode Island. For some reason, has a bathroom attendant.
You went to a strip club that was so fancy, had an attendant.
It is not fancy, but they do have an attendant.
He went to one and it had an attendant. Yeah.
I put $10 in his little bowl. I said, I'm gonna be in and out of here all night. I'm drinking beers. I'm peeing a lot. This is for the night, and I just and he beat me up in a fucking stall.
I just love a scenario where you do that and then they change shifts and the other guy's just like, this fucking asshole.
That'd be smart. Like every hour you change shifts. Yeah, it's like the bar back has to like switch out and do that.
Dude, imagine you're sitting there for like 8 hours and then all you're doing is just sitting through people's poops. Like that must be like...
That's like your dream job.
Yeah, Gordo, you must love that.
I wouldn't be able to stop laughing.
I'm with you.
That would be a funny little sitcom scene. A guy with an upset stomach overtips the guy, and then when he runs it again, there's like a shift swap. Like,
and then he's got like a gas mask
and
on.
He's like clamoring. Yeah.
It's an episode of Seinfeld.
That is definitely a Seinfeld, like a modern Seinfeld sketch, yeah.
This is why we should do short. We should have a sitcom.
I will strip and Gordo, you can shit, and we'll figure out how to make this work.
And that is the clip.
Not to derail here, but Jay, were you just scratching your face with a knife?
It's not a real knife. It's like back when I used to work
knife?
Back when I used to work in produce, this was like the little tool we had, and I found it recently, and I use it to cut boxes when I'm up here. It's not sharp anymore. I haven't sharpened it in 15 years. So
what's wrong with your fingers? Why can't you just scratch your face like a normal person?
Just, I don't know.
What's wrong with your fingers?
Sorry, too much Laverne and Shirley. It's giving me that accent.
Hello, what's wrong with your fingers?
Hello. That was not what he does. I did that completely.
Hey, you could do that. Can you do Bobcat Goldthwait by any chance? It's been a while. You've been working on it.
I cannot. But before we go completely off the rails here, so they walk in the room and they're like, oh, that couple over there is staring at us. It's like, oh, I think they're just admiring our lovely dresses, which is a weird thing to think, but whatever. And then they walk up to this couple and they exchange hellos, and we find out that they're second cousins to the Shotzes. It's like, oh, I'm Marshall Stewart of the Palm Beach Stewarts. My wife, Vivian, formerly Vivian Bruin of the Boston Bruins.
That's a great joke.
That is a great joke.
This guy, too, is one of those, like, character actors of our entire lives. Where you, like, look up his IMDb. He's got, like, 150 credits, and he was on everything ever, like, once. He's, like, so recognizable.
Is it weird to be this highbrow and snooty to be the second cousins of the
I
people
think
that are there?
probably more so in the 50s for sure, especially in the upper class. Like that was like a thing. This is probably the end of it though. Like I don't think it was very, but I don't know. I've never been in the upper class, so I don't know.
I'm sure if you're loaded, you have people coming out of the woodworks from every part of the family. Go, hey, can I get some money? Can I get this? Like,
And if I remember correctly, when I was reading up on this episode, this couple was actually a married couple. Like in real life, they were together, and they referenced their two children. One of those children is for real, like their like kid's name,
Like Mitzi or whatever, yeah.
Interesting.
So she's telling the girls like, "Oh, those are lovely dresses you're wearing." Like, "Oh, thanks." And then she's like, "Marshall, can I speak to you a moment?" And like sidesteps with her husband, and they walk off. Like, well, what was that all about? It's like, oh, the ladies. And then they say that lady's cruising for a bruising, but I don't know what she said that was so bad. Why?
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was that offensive.
Didn't say anything offensive yet. Everything else she says is kind of shitty to them later, but
She kind of gives like a reason to leave that wasn't very veiled.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be with them.
Yeah, she was rude about leaving the conversation.
Their demeanor was just very arrogant.
well, yeah, it was that very like highbrow, kind of that slightly transatlantic type of vernacular.
would have been the perfect time for a why I oughta.
So as soon as they exit, Tad walks in with his Nana. He's introducing his Nana to everybody. It's like, oh, Nana, look, these are the two girls from the brewery I was telling you about. And she's like, oh, hello. She's like, oh, those are lovely dresses. And then she goes, remind me to tell Max that he's overpaying his laborers. So essentially the idea that the two girls wearing these dresses means that they're paying their employees too much money.
I love this too. I forget the actor's name who plays Nana in this, but her first acting credit is in 1930. Like, man, that is crazy.
Mary Treen.
It's like when I thought about it recently when we did I Love Lucy, William Frawley, he's got things from like the mid 1800s or like the late 1880s and stuff like that. If I remember, he was in like 100 things before I Love Lucy. Like he was just so old.
That's the guy who was skeptical of like the talkies. He was like, I don't know if I want to do a picture with his voice. I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
what?
right.
Funny enough, actually, she did an episode of Happy Days, but playing a different character.
I love all these people too who just worked for like 80 years doing one-offs and like made a living. Like you couldn't do that now, but like what a great career that would be.
I think someday people are going to be like, those S1E1 guys, they were from the 1900s.
No, one of the 80s. The 1980s.
Tad saying, oh, Laverne, where's your beau? The Fonzarelli character. Kind of interesting that he remembered the name. But we do have to make sure that we keep mentioning him. So, like, oh, he had to work late in the garage, but he's going to be here in time for the eats. Oh, nice.
I feel like that's also like a little bit of just like Italian racism too, where like they remember his name because they're like, there's an Italian guy coming here. Like they're like weird out, you know?
Like, oh, well, until then, why did you go over there and look at the statue of Nana? It's like, oh, because I must mingle with the real guests, which is, you brought it up earlier, which I think is like super telling. Yeah. Just go look at the statue of my Nana for a while until the food's out.
An indoor statue.
Also, even if I was like billionaire rich, if somebody offered like, do you want a statue, like a rock piece statue of your head? I'd be like, no, that's an awful thing. Like, why would I want that in my home?
Oh, I would in a second. I want the
Me
Rocky
too.
statue of me.
That's different. That's a whole statue. Just a bust to me is weird.
No.
I would get a bust and I'd put it on my grand piano that I'll have when I'm rich too.
Would you put it on top of your Rocky
You can
robot?
get those for free if you can move
If
them.
it was sized properly, that I could use it as like a hat mannequin, maybe.
My Clark Gable wax bust, I do put hats on sometimes. But I'm not related to him. That's a famous guy. Like, it's weird. If it was my head, I'd feel like it was weird.
No, this is still weird.
Yeah.
I'm
Old
sorry.
Quirky
He was
Joe.
a classic actor. He was in Run Silent, Run Deep.
When Laverne's admiring this statue, which is just a bust, she's like, I get it's impressive to see, but she was like oddly admiring it, and to the point where she's touching it and snaps the ear off. While Shirley's like enjoying just sitting in a nice, comfortable chair, she goes to show it to her, and like she like fucking screams as if there was a human ear in her hand. Like she,
Laverne has to go, it's not mine.
I mean, I would be a little less freaked out if you showed me an ear, Nick, and I was like, oh my God, you're like, it's not mine. I'd be like, oh, okay.
It would have been funny if they really did come from the wax factory and there was a wax ear in there, and then you can believe that, oh, it's a real ear.
It was in her pocket, started melting, and she was like, oh my God. It's like the end of Raiders.
and then the butler comes out. And he goes, "Dinner is served." Like, did you hear that? Dinner served. Like, yeah, I heard it. I have 3 years. Waka waka waka.
That's
waka.
a fun walk.
That was funny. That was funny. That made me laugh.
Has anybody been to a like an art museum recently?
Not recently.
Not
no.
recently.
No.
Yeah, I hadn't been in 25 years probably. We went to one a couple weeks ago. Like, just like we went to the museum, and it was a very enjoyable time. It's like kind of a nice thing to just go look at art.
I saw the Mona Lisa, or what they told me was the Mona Lisa. It could have been a fake, but
Were you at the Louvre?
no, it was at the Smithsonian when I was there in like the early 90s.
Oh, if it was at the Smithsonian, I believe it. Yeah,
That was actually her sister moaning Betty.
I believe that's Ugly Betty's sister.
Oh, silly me.
No, like an occasional museum trip's always like a good time. Like the Museum of Fine Arts, like you can spend like an entire day like there.
I love the Egyptian shit at the Museum of Fine Arts. Same thing with there's one up in Salem too.
Fuck that. I'm more of a museum of science kind of guy.
I mean, that's fun too.
Those goat eyes.
You're the children's museum kind of guy.
I think Children's Museum and Aquarium counts. Yeah.
Do we still have in the city the computer museum? Is that still a thing? It used to be right next to the children's museum.
Yeah, I think it is still there. That came up. I was looking for something and that popped up, but it's like got like really weird hours.
Yeah, I wonder, like, technology's updated so much now. Like, I wonder, like, back then it was like, look at all these, like, when we were kids, like, home computer was still like in its infancies. You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny to say it now.
A computer in the house? What?
But, yeah, like things were so different. Like, so like the little games you played there seemed so like wild. And it's like now, like, I don't know what you can impress kids with when it comes to computers because they're born with tablets in their hands.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was a kid, that was like one of those. I was so fascinated by computers and stuff as a kid, and like didn't have one in my house until I was like in middle school. So like when I was a kid, if I like did anything that warranted like a reward, like it was like, can we go to the computer museum? Like that was like the coolest thing in the world to me.
What a nerd.
I remember you had a computer. I didn't have a computer yet, and your computer was 1 gigabyte, and that was
Yeah.
a big deal.
It was a
Yeah.
Packard Bell,
Yeah.
and it had 1 gigabyte of space. And you
It
were
was
like,
a Packard
holy
Bell.
shit.
There was a game I played on that too. Oh no, I think I was thinking of a later one. You had Unreal Tournament on it.
Yeah, that was later on.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean the man. Thinking about, I hate being the old guy screaming at the clouds, but the difference between now and then, like everybody's got a computer in their pocket, and we had like these giant machines bolted to desks in our we had to have separate rooms for them and shit like that.
To bring this full circle, on Jay's computer, we used to watch the Weezer Buddy Holly video,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
which featured Happy Days.
I remember Berg and Gordo you both had web TV, right? Before you had like
Yeah.
They did,
computers
yeah.
with like internet.
With the keyboard on your couch, and you were like, this is the worst idea ever. Not your fault, just like in general, at the time, it was a terrible idea.
I mean, it wasn't a terrible idea.
Now it's like TVs all just kind of have it because you have to link them to your internet to do things. But yeah, it's such a different, at the time, it seemed like such an odd concept.
Well, let me rephrase that. It wasn't a bad idea. It just was an idea that was too good for the time technology allowed it.
Yeah.
Like, it was a cool idea, but Web TV didn't have like a hard drive to it, so like you couldn't go anywhere you had to download something. It's like you just couldn't go to those sites. So anything that had to like
Most of the websites, like the pictures were all just like the little red X's. Yeah, there was like nothing would open.
Yeah, it was basically like a GeoCities like reader. Like,
Not that you could download much at that point anyway.
yeah.
To get back into what's going on here, they're all sitting at dinner now. The butler opens the door and he goes, "I'm sorry, Master Tad. This gentleman made me say this. Ladies and gentlemen, the Fonz." And Arthur Fonzarelli walks out, and
That sweet man.
yeah, Henry Winkler, legitimately one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life, like without a doubt.
Wait a minute, 2 people in Little Nicky.
And I get that they bring him up in the very beginning of the episode, and I understand how like networks would do stuff like this to help get you to watch these programs. I don't know, it felt a little too forced this episode to throw him in here, but
I think that, like you said, though, that's just a product of us being in the future watching something in the past. It didn't feel as forced back then. I guarantee.
and if it helped you, if it legitimately helped get like a lot of people to watch the episode, which I'm sure it did, but,
Right.
like, I understand.
Honestly, that might work better these days. It's hard to get anyone to watch any new shows
That's
now.
true, yeah. Like, you need a
Yeah.
hook now.
Like, what if the St. Dennis show that just came out? What if they were like, the first episode you follow, Michael Scott was going to be one of the patients? I bet people would turn in and then like this show.
Yeah. Oh, that's 100%. Yeah.
So Fonzie walks in, he's introducing himself to everybody, kind of doing his whole Fonzie thing. He's talking to Tad. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. Like, I got stuck, late at the garage." Tad's like, "Oh, perhaps you like to wash your hands." He's like, "No, I wash my hands down at the garage." Yeah, he's like,
Good for the Fonz right here. He, like, throws it right back in this dude's face. Like, hey, man, I washed my fucking hands.
but there's this point where it's like Tad's like looking at him like, "Oh, this kind of like crass guy walking in here, this dirty, like lower class dude." And then he's like, "I wash my hands, okay." But then he's just like, "Hey, but Tado, I'd love to use your John for another reason. Catch my drift." So it's like, then he kind of falls right into what he thinks he is. Yeah.
I love the thought of him going in there and taking a massive shit.
I will say, though, I think the Fonz looks so fucking cool right here. Like, he's got his leather jacket on. It's zipped up a quarter of the way, and he has a shirt and tie under it. He looks really fucking cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of his thing.
But he never wore, like, a shirt and tie on Happy Days. Like, he can just be the
He
Fonz,
wears
but-
that leather jacket no matter what. He wears it when he's jumping the shark, when he jumps the shark.
in shorts. Yeah. But the shirt and tie adds to the look. I think he looks really cool.
You should start doing that.
Next episode, I'm going to have a leather jacket and a shirt and tie.
So he leaves for a minute to use the bathroom, and you see Laverne and Shirley talking, and it's like, "Hey, I feel like that woman from earlier is like staring at our backs. Like, oh, she's just curious about us." And then she like walks up to Shirley and like almost like grabs the back of the dress to like check something on it, and like let go of her dress. It's like, "These are my daughter's dresses. Anne Blythe and Donna Reed are your daughters?" Which is nice. A nice tie-in from earlier. It's like, "These are my Allegra and Blinky's dresses." Binky? Yeah, Binky. Allegra and Binky. I think Allegra is her real daughter's name. "These were stolen from our apartment." It's like, we didn't steal these dresses. We rented them. And this was like what I wanted to kind of bring up earlier, but I had to kind of wait for, there to be a point in time where it made sense. But for Lenny and Squiggy's characters, like, them stealing them off a wax, or borrowing them from like their uncle's like wax museum, like, that's like goofy, and it works with their characters and the tone.
Yeah.
Them breaking and entering and stealing dresses from like a random apartment paints them in a completely different way that's like not funny,
Wait,
and
maybe-
now puts them in a bad spot.
Oh, I would say maybe they didn't. Maybe their sleazy uncle that does have a wax museum stole them to put on his wax things, and
I don't know. It seems so.
he tricked them.
I feel like you would give the redemption story if that was
As much as
the case,
this
though.
couple sucks, and this is another thing too. It's like, it's weird because now they're assholes, and we are to root against them. But now they have like a reason to be assholes, so it just kind of gets a little muddled there. This woman, because if you remember, when they first walk in, they're like, that woman's looking at us. Oh, she's probably admiring our dresses. From the second they walked in, now it's clear. She saw those dresses and she's like, I know those dresses. And then sidebars with her husband. And then they probably called someone back at the house, the nanny or whoever, and said, "Hey, I want to see if these 2 dresses are in the closet." And then they realized that they were missing. So it's like, as much as they were assholes this whole time, it all makes sense. Like she has a total reason to hate these girls right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just doesn't set you up for episode 2 liking Lenny and Squiggy, where they're
Yeah.
supposed to be the comic relief of the show, and they just seem like they're criminals.
Again, I'm gonna give them credit and think they were tricked too, because they got him from their
Yeah.
uncle and he stole it.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And because it's never established, we can go with mine.
It's possible, but it's a tight timeline for it to make sense. We are where we are regardless. Nana doesn't really like how awkward this is, so she has to be taken to her room. And she says to Tad, hey, if you guys call the police, please tell them no sirens. It reminds her of the war.
It's like a wild, weird reference, but I love the idea too of being so above everyone else and so Rich being like, that's it, I'm going to bed. You can have the rest of the party without me.
So everything's getting a little crazy now, and everyone's talking. And Fonzie walks back in. He's like, hold on. And, he's like being privy to what's happening. They're saying, like, your friends happen to be wearing stolen gowns. They're my daughters. And he basically says, like, hey, like, these are good girls. Like, they don't steal. Basically, when it was announced that they rented them, like, he takes it for what it's worth. He's like, listen, and he's basically just kind of talking on their behalf of, everything and saying, if they said that, that's what they did. They, they're good girls. They don't have what you guys have. So when you invite them to a fancy party, they're looking for like a way to like, they want to look nice for you. And he goes, they don't have nice clothes like us. Again, as he's just sitting there in his leather jacket with a shirt and tie.
It's a great fucking line.
But I like, how he is breaking this down in a way that you would think would like level it. Like, hey, they're dressed up nice for you. They want to look good for you so they can fit in at this party.
I love how effortlessly cool Fonzie is too, where he's like, none of this shit bothers him. He's mad that they're fucking with Laverne and Shirley, but he's not like out of place at this party. You can drop him in anywhere and he's never not Fonzie.
Yeah, he like exists on his own plane.
Yeah.
And just like travels through. Like there's no, it is, yeah. He's
Which
just
is
kinda
funny
righteous.
because, again, we covered this a long time ago, but when we did Happy Days, the Fonz character wasn't the Fonz yet, like that first season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He like basically doesn't talk the whole episode. He's just, just getting chicks and driving off on the motorcycle. That's all he does.
It's funny too, looking at it from like a post, that era point of view, where like to us growing up, aside from reruns, the Fonz now is like a shucks, things are going poorly for me character. Like Henry Winkler in like Arrested Development or Barry is not a cool guy.
Getting chased by dogs.
Like it's just so different. I love watching him be so effortlessly cool and being like, when we were kids watching reruns, you were so cool, and now we're watching these shows of you, then you're like this funny different old man.
Now that it's decided, like, hey, listen, they didn't know that they were stolen. Tomorrow they're going to return the dresses, and for now, let's just sit down and eat and whatever. So that's all pretty much agreed upon. You get try not to get any spots on these stolen dresses. And it's like, don't worry, like, take them to the cleaners before we bring them back. And she's like, no, we'll have them dry cleaned, not the laundromat.
A little rough.
Yeah. And it says something about how the dresses are going to have a permanent slouch. And you see, like, Laverne, like, lift her shoulders because she was slouched at the table at the time.
Yeah.
Do you ever notice anybody? I mean, again, it's maybe generational, but like, I notice all the time that I'm like elbow down on the table. Like, we're a bad generation of slouched people, but like, nobody sits up straight at a table. That's gone, right?
It's harder to eat.
Only in formal settings.
I try to do it when like working just because of like, just like posture. I don't most of the time. I find myself like leaning and fucking, yeah. But these snooty rich people have a lot of weird fucking
Etiquette rules. There's whole books on it.
It's not weird etiquette. Like it's I guess like by all standards it's normal, but like
Yeah, it's proper etiquette, I guess.
There's the woman makes another snide comment and Laverne jumps up and is like, people, huh? Like, I'll show you people, because she's like, oh, there's dresses on those two people. She's like, you know what, lady? I got more class in my little pinky than you have in your whole thumb. Follow me? And then you just see they just cut to Fonzie thumbs upping, and it's like that was just so like
it was,
that was
so
corny.
awkward, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like him giving the thumbs up. And then you flash forward, you see Laverne walking out, and she just has like her slip on. That's what they call it. I listen, I don't know much about lady dress stuff. So basically, it's like the dress under the dress. That's like,
yeah, it looks like a nightgown.
Yeah, it looks
basically.
nightgownish.
Yeah.
So she runs out in that now, and she no longer has the dress on. Mind you, still at the party. She's asking for her coat. And then they cut to Fonzie again now with a double thumbs up.
It's like it felt like they went back and filmed these later too.
Yeah.
Like they're just so out of touch.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
out
just
of
don't
place.
fit the context.
You only got Henry for one day. Like,
No. I mean, it actually kind of makes sense because isn't Fonzie like Laverne's boyfriend?
They're on a date, but the thumbs
So
up
he's
is
probably
his
like,
calling card,
"Hey."
though. That's the thing. They're just sneaking in like they want Fonzie to do the Fonzie stuff.
The Fonz has a lot of girlfriends.
I suppose he didn't do it like a snap to shut everybody up when they're fighting, or like what? Like I was expecting more Fonzie-isms.
He just elbows the butler.
He starts playing music out of his mouth.
Laverne turns her dress in. She's like, I just want to say I came here tonight because my friend wanted to see the inside of one of these beautiful houses. Well, believe me, they look a lot friendlier from the outside. We were treated better by the attack dogs.
And again, to go back to what you said earlier, it's like you're like, yeah, you go, girl, but these are their stolen things.
It was now proven
Yeah.
that these are
So
stolen dresses.
they have the right to be angry.
Yeah, so it's just like it throws it. Like it was kind of a weird way around it.
Like the better twist would have been that it's not the dresses that got stolen or something like that. Or like they get another call, oh, the dresses are in the closet or something like that. So they just seem like snooty assholes.
Yeah, it would have been better if there was some sort of a misunderstanding or something that made them like, enough's enough, you've accused us of this and that and the other thing. But to make it so they were actually stolen dresses, it just really like, it just muddles the message at the end. So she hands her dress on. It's like, Shirley, where are you? And like then Shirley runs out, same thing, has her slip on, but she's maybe a little bit more embarrassed by it. So she's like, has the dress she's about to turn over covering her a bit. But honestly, like these slips, like they're just as covered. They're not revealing in the slightest. So
Yeah, they act like they're in their underwear, but it's basically just a dress.
yeah, you are completely covered.
But I was gonna say, but for the time,
Yeah, right.
For the time they're pretending to be. Not even like the real time, but yeah.
Like, you know what I wonder though? It's like this is their boss's like party and all that. It's like there's no repercussions at work.
I
like,
wonder the
hey,
same thing.
like-
I have that
Yeah.
note.
Yeah.
I have that note in on mine too. Because yes, at the end of the day, with all of this in mind, this is still like the people who run the company you work for.
I just think it shows though how little authority Tad has rather though, because right at the beginning they kind of make note that like, hey, go wash your car or the uncle's car or whatever. I don't think Tad has the authority to be like,
He doesn't, but his Nana and stuff were all there. So like, now she just
Nana's in bed though.
but yeah, after finding out that they were stolen dresses though. So I don't know. I think there is an argument there for like, shouldn't this whole family who runs this brewery be like, maybe these two girls shouldn't work here anymore.
no, I agree.
It's hard to find good cappers.
Is Todd around, or Tad, whatever his name is? Is he around for other episodes, or was this like a one-off?
I think this is a one-off.
Okay, because that would have been my next question. Is like their relationship different after this?
I'm sure it would affect it for sure. Oh, geez, girls, I'm sorry. I didn't realize all that was going to happen.
Have a donut.
They're getting ready to leave. I like how Fonzie doesn't want to leave until he finishes his soup, though. So like they're getting their coats on and they're like running out.
So hard at this. When
Fonzie
he's like, hold on, I want to finish my soup. It's
And they
such a
leave.
fucking-
He's still smiling, eating soup. He doesn't
Yeah.
drive them home.
Isn't that how it ends? It's just him like laughing, eating soup. It's the fucking
the
weirdest Fonzie move. It's kind of out of character, but it was.
It seemed a little out of
hilarious.
character for him, yeah.
There's nothing less cool than eating soup, and like they have him eating soup.
Yeah, I mean, like I could see him being like if it was like a steak dinner, and he was like, "All right, but I'm taking this with me," and like just like forked the steak and like walked out with it. But he's like got this little teacup of soup. He's like, "Hold on, I want to finish my soup." It was so funny.
Yeah, it's like a dainty little bowl, which makes it even funnier.
I should have taken the bowl with them. And I'll return this when I'm done.
Yeah.
This is a cool bowl. Whoa. What like Fonzie lines?
They have a strange little callback too at the end of the episode or at the end of the scene where after the girls leave, the guy Marshall, the one who's from the couple whose daughter's dresses they were wearing, discovers the ear is in his cup from the bust where Laverne had ripped it off earlier.
And everybody instinctively checks their ears, like they lost an ear.
I do appreciate the insanity of that. But that makes sense too, though, because like your ear's a weird thing. Like you could chop your ear off and it wouldn't affect your hearing.
I mean, true.
I think it would very slightly, but yeah, I mean, I feel like your ear is kind of meant to like funnel sound into your head, you know? So I mean, like it might sound a little different.
But, like they should all know they still have an ear there.
Right.
Ask McFoley.
In fairness, I have earbuds in right now, and they're shoved directly into my ear, like passing all of the exterior stuff.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
that's going directly into your ear canal.
Right. But if your ear was cut off, like I would essentially be sticking the earbud in a similar spot.
Yeah, you go in the same hole.
No, yeah. Yeah, but we're just talking about like regular ambient noise, like without the earbud.
Also, like we're all fucked, right? Like earbud people, like that's a
Yeah, we're
terrible
deaf.
thing.
I already
bad
have
idea.
hearing problems, yeah.
No, I'm
I am
already
deaf,
blind.
so
I know, like I don't need one more impairment, but here we are.
Like, what am I gonna get? Like, good smelling powers? Like, that sucks.
Ferg is blind and deaf, but he can smell a muffin from a mile away. Oh
He's
my
blind
God.
and deaf, but he fucking stinks.
I will say this though: hearing aids, you can you get them with Bluetooth now, which is really cool. And then if you have ear aids in, they can't tell you at work to take them out.
That's true.
It's too bad you can't use them to hear these episodes we do.
Yeah, do you need like a memory aid or a visual aid?
I
of
think,
some
yeah,
sort?
no, if anything, that's when he needs to put his glasses back on.
I woke up from a nap and I didn't feel like grabbing my glasses.
So you watched the episode Fuzzy?
I was in bed
Oh my God.
and I watched it. I only fell asleep for a little bit in the middle while they were in the apartment.
I saw tall Blur yell at short Blur. Okay, I get it.
That girl with the big cursive S on her shirt.
That must be Shirley.
We flash to the end of the night now, and we have Laverne and Shirley in their apartment. And they're both like in the kitchenette type of area, and you can tell like Laverne's really upset with how the night went. She's like, loudly doing things. Yeah, like everything's like meant to make extra noise. You kind of have Shirley trying to talk her down, like you haven't said a word, like we didn't stay long enough to meet any nice gentlemen, but otherwise we did all right. All in all, it wasn't such a bad evening. He's like, what did you say? It's like, it wasn't a bad evening. It's like, no, it was a bad evening. Like that was a bad evening. Like this.
I do like that Shirley says the next one will be better.
Yeah. And that's kind of like when they like kind of call each other out on like just like how they are and their differences. Because like Shirley's such an optimist and stuff that like she's like, oh, it wasn't the worst night. It's like, no, look at what happened. That was a fucking terrible night. She's basically kind of like getting on her about like all that stuff. And an ant can't move a rubber tree plant, like going back to the song that they were singing earlier and saying Santa Claus is not gonna ho 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 down our chimney and give you a gentleman as a president, as
As a president.
a present.
Well, I'm here. It's me, Governor Ronald Reagan. I'm here for Laverne. Sorry, I don't know why that happened.
And then Shirley gets back at Laverne now, and she's like, well, like, you're not going to get anywhere just being a gloomy Gus all the time. Like, you're not going to meet any high society gentlemen if they happen to ask you on a date and you go, and does, like, the raspberry back at her. And, like, Laverne's like, you actually do that pretty good. I've never seen you do that one before. She's like, see, you make fun of everything. And, like, no, my plans don't always turn out perfect, but, like, it gets us to do things and go places. And just saying how Laverne, like, you're just so negative and you knock everything and you're so sarcastic. And if Santa doesn't come by here, it's because he's afraid of you. And then it cuts to Laverne going, Santa's not afraid of me. And then she said, like, I never said I was a saint, but, like, we grew up together. Like, we went to school together. Like, basically, like, you know who I am. Like, you signed up for this.
There's definitely the weird, like, naked joke here, too, though. It's like we went to gym class together. You get to know a person.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on in gym class.
When you climb ropes in gym class, you see things.
And then she's saying, I never dreamed I would hear such words coming out of the girl's mouth who wrote this in my high school yearbook. And like goes and pulls it out. It says, to Laverne, if in heaven we don't meet, hand in hand we'll bear the heat. And if it never gets too hot, Pepsi Cola hits the spot.
Yeah, Pepsi.
The fun of this, too, is that Laverne wrote
Whoa.
it in, like, a square, so she's changing angles
She should
of the
change the
book.
direction of the yearbook as she's reading it.
And I think they make it so on the show, right? Laverne's favorite drink is Pepsi and milk.
Yeah, which is so fucking gnarly.
That's like an old lady thing, though. Like that generation, like people's modern days grandmas will do like Coke and milk, Moxie and milk was like a thing. Like, so
I mean,
those
I would
are,
try it. I would do it with
Isn't
Coke
that
first
different
of all.
from a root beer float?
That's what I was thinking. If you really think
Yeah.
about it at its base, it's not
That's a good
that
point,
crazy.
yeah.
You know, I'm not mad about that. Yeah, that makes kind of sense.
So are we gonna try it?
I would. I mean, think it's like, it's you're turning anything into like a creamsicle or a float. Yeah, it's probably wouldn't be that bad.
So when we do the S1E1 cooking episode, we'll make that.
I really want to do this, by the way. I want us to cook.
I love this idea, but if we're gonna start drinking soda and milk together, make sure it's an Airbnb with more than one bathroom, because I imagine it's not gonna make anybody feel good.
I'll bring chips and store-bought dessert.
Joe, if we're trekking up your way soon, we can bring some Pepsi and milk.
Yeah, I might see some of you next week. We'll see.
You
Well,
will.
next week,
You
geez.
won't see me, unfortunately. I've been snubbed from the boy hole too many times.
I would actually love if we all. This is a conversation for later, but if we all make it and can get a nice group photo of the four of us in the boy hole without Gordo,
Without Gordo?
that would really be pretty fantastic.
I might quit.
I think I've said this on air before, but when I recently went up to Joe's and the two of us took a picture together in it, we posted it, but in real life, sending it to just the group chat, Gordo legit got pissed off.
I've been up there multiple times. Multiple times.
You just weren't worthy of the invite.
So if we get the four of us all to take a group boy hole pic, that'd be pretty fantastic. But anyways, to round out this episode, because we're getting towards the end of it, basically at this point, like the girls are just kind of like coming to terms with their differences and just being like, oh, okay, like you're right. And, they're friends and just kind of making nice with each other. And then they kind of get into singing High Hopes once again, only this time Laverne joins in and sings with her. This whole last scene, I didn't love it. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
I'm with you.
I didn't think I don't think they have to like talk about why they're different and have these long monologues each and stuff like that. Like I just didn't feel like it did anything for the episode.
Show, don't tell, and they're telling you all this stuff you've seen throughout the whole episode. If I was writing this show, I would have eliminated this entire last scene, made the dinner party a little longer so there was more awkward stuff and more funny seeing them clash with high society. And then when they walked out of the things with their heads held high, like they won in the end, and that would have been a good ending for the episode.
And that's when you give the Fonz his 2 thumbs up as they leave.
It's not that this scene's terrible, Nick, or anything like that. I just like it didn't need to happen. Like I don't think their friendship was at risk at the end of this episode where they needed to like make up. You know what I mean? Like go back to their roots of.
I think it's more about the pilot, right? I feel like this is something they probably felt like they had to do. It didn't bother me, by the way.
But from
like
watching
it
the
seemed to bother
episode,
guys,
did you
but-
not already know their personalities and differences at this point?
I mean, yeah, but this didn't hurt that. Like, I didn't feel like this was a negative.
I don't think it hurt it. It didn't need to be there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it didn't bother me at all.
For me, on a 25-minute episode, we could have done without this minute.
Yeah.
We could have had I would have rather maybe like inject Lenny and Squiggy into the scene somehow instead.
Yeah.
Me too.
Have the two of them come home after the party, them come back like, hey, we're here to pick up the dresses or something like that. And then they yell at them for them being stolen. And then my uncle did say blah, 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 like something stupid. And like, something like that could have rounded out a little bit better.
Like, hello, did you steal these dresses? Goodbye. Dum, bum, 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 bum. Like, perfect ending.
But yeah, that's not what we got.
Why I oughta.
And yeah. So that was the end of the episode, but I don't know if this was just the version we had, or maybe originally TV aired it this way too.
It sputtered out a bit at the end.
Like this little bonus thing at the end, yeah, where it's like, hey, I'm Laverne, I'm Shirley. It's like, and I'm Fonzie, and like, and look at this big cake. It's like, find out next week how this comes into play. And they show you like clips from the next episode. And again, I think they're just like really trying to use Fonzie as a tool to get you to keep watching.
Hook you in for next week.
Yeah, just to get you like really like acclimated with these characters. They just show you some clips and
Them at a bachelor party.
yeah, it was funny to see it, but
I'd love to think that the stripper not being in the cake was because she went to the Addams Family bachelor party right before,
Lurch. Did you cook the cake with her in it?
That poor girl.
But yeah, that was we got that like a little bit of bonus stuff with it, which was, I guess fine for what it was. That stuff, I guess, like can help, right? Like watching those like this season on.
If you love Fonzie.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I think that it doesn't make sense in a syndication or rewatch scenario, but for like the initial viewing of the first airing, I think it makes sense.
But I assume that's not just our version. That seemed to have been part of the episode itself.
It might have been. That's why I think like the way it looked, like I could see it going that way. It was definitely aired probably that same day. I don't know exactly how they did it, but yeah, it might have been. That might officially be like part of episode 1's cut that originally made it to TV. With all that in mind, I mean, that's the whole episode. I don't have a ton of other stuff. One thing I did want to talk about with Laverne and Shirley that's like not so much first episode, but just one thing about the show that's kind of a bummer is like they notoriously had a terrible set in that like there was nonstop like heavy arguments, a lot between the two main characters. Like they both like always swore that at the end of the day they were good friends, but there was a lot of animosity on set between the two of them. Like they were very competitive with like spotlight and lines, and I guess like the rest of like the crew and cast, like they were often seen as like giant prima donnas as well. So just kind of like, I don't know, it sometimes you hate hearing those things because it like sours you on it a little bit when you're watching.
It's tough too, right? With Gary Marshall being like the creator and writer of the show, with your sister in the cast, like you're always going to feel slighted if you're Cindy. Like that's going to be always like, oh, you're writing her the best jokes or giving her the best scenes.
Ignorance is bliss. Don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah, I'm glad as a kid I didn't know any of that stuff. I just watched it happily, and I think that that's what we're supposed to do with this show too, is just watch it and what do you think? But it's hard too to be like adults and be like, these people hated each other and now they're fucking dead.
Yeah, it's like Three's Company, same situation. You know what I mean? Like Three's Company was like no idea that like it got so ugly between them afterwards.
Yeah, like, and this is very much like Three's Company too, with like a lot of cast changes as the seasons went on, and the network being like, we'll just retool it. Fuck it, we're not going to cancel it.
Well, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with Will and the mom. Like they hated each other.
And then Will got so big they got rid of the mom.
Yeah. But like Cindy Williams like leaves the show. It's called Laverne and Shirley. And like Shirley's not in 20 episodes of the show.
Did they change the name when she left? I don't know any of this.
To my knowledge, it was always Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah, I think it was still Laverne and Shirley, but they just like it, and it was like a different girl.
She like bailed out on like the last season.
So was it a different person playing her, or was it did they replace the character?
No, it was just a different character. That's like the Three's Company thing too, right? Like we didn't get a different character from Suzanne Summers.
Yeah, but her name wasn't in the, title of the show. That's weird.
I mean, like that's the upside of like to go with Rob Reiner and those folks, right? Like Archie Bunker's place, right? The show changed the name when it sort of changed what it was, but Laverne and Shirley didn't do that.
It's just strange. It's kind of like a strange like note at the end, but yeah, but we covered it also. Not to drag it out too much longer than it needs to be. Might as well get into the green light or cancels. Gordo, we'll start with you since you paid the closest attention to it.
In all honesty, like, I don't know if we touched on this too during the episode, but like this used to be on Nick at Night a lot. Like that's where I remember watching a lot of this. Wasn't always my favorite. I don't know. Maybe it's just something about it doesn't resonate with me. Like it, don't get me wrong. They're funny. I like Lenny and Squiggy, but like this first episode, I already sort of went into it like, I never liked this show. Maybe I'm just misremembering it. I really wasn't. And outside of Lenny, Squiggy, the Fonz, like, meh. So I'm going to cancel. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel.
Nick.
Yeah, I just the opposite, really. I feel like this is like one of your like your classic sitcoms. It's fun storytelling. I mean, obviously there's things that could be done, but this is the pilot episode. Like the things that could be changed about it are nothing that I would ever consider canceling it for. Laverne and Shirley are just like, they're adorable. They're funny. Like they are like clueless. And it's just, I don't know. It's just like a lot of potential here watching this first episode. Lenny and Squiggy kill me. I don't know. I mean, like this, obviously has a lot of nostalgia baked into it, but I don't remember enough of the show to really let nostalgia affect me. Like, obviously everybody knows who Laverne and Shirley are, but as far as like the show and its stories and stuff like that, I don't remember hardly any of it. But after watching this episode, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hooked, and I definitely want to keep watching. It's just a fun show, and it's something you don't see, like we talked about, you don't see it a lot anymore. So yeah, I'm greenlighting this. It's pretty easy. I had a lot of fun with this, and I'm kind of excited to kind of keep watching this one in bed.
Yeah, I'll jump in the middle. This was a show that I enjoyed back in the day. I think I've always had a kind of love affair with like the 50s. So like that's always like an era that's just always aesthetically I thought was cool, like the greaser look and everything that kind of goes with it, and that classic, like the music that goes with it, the visuals, like the vibe was always really fun for me. The show here I liked as a kid, like when it was on at night. I think the appreciation for it is different as an adult, and you're looking at it, you know, from a different perspective, and now you see it more for what it is. And listen, there are definitely holes in this episode. I don't think like the snooty event that they had to go to was the right approach, and then we kind of flubbed up on Lenny and Squiggy's characters with the resolve there. Like this is not a perfect episode, but I think the chemistry between the two main characters and just seeing like how fun they can be riffing off each other is enough for me. Again, that last scene I would have chopped out, but yeah, no, I like it. I would continue watching, may continue watching. So it's a green light for me. Berg.
Yeah, I'm in the same like wheelhouse as Jay. Had a lot of problems, a lot of issues with it, but nothing severe enough for me to cancel. I don't love this as a pilot, and I know I love this show as a whole. This just isn't the best choice. It would have been nice to just see a little more of their everyday life instead of them going on this adventure to rich people town. But yeah, like Jay said, they're great together. Lenny and Squiggy are awesome. Show made me laugh a good amount of times. It's not a strong green light, but it's a green light nonetheless.
Joe?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what everyone except for Gordo said, where this is just a show I loved.
Don't throw me under the bus.
I'm sorry, man. Look, this wasn't a show you watch as a kid, though. I think everyone here has something that you didn't, where like we watched this a lot as a kid, so there's a lot of nostalgia baked into it. The one thing I kept thinking about was we've had a lot of conversations on the show about like, what do you make for your gravy, right? Like your homemade gravy for meatballs.
Sauce.
Sure, if you're a sauce person, I'm not going to fight it. But one thing I do every year, and we host Thanksgiving, is we make lasagna, and I use ragu for my lasagna. It's a very specific flavor, but I think it's like perfect for lasagna. And it's the one time a year we have to buy the giant bottle of ragu, and I spend a week going, the big ragu, which is like the dumbest Laverne and Shirley reference ever, right? So like a show I watched forever as a kid that every year I make the same Laverne and Shirley joke to. It's so hard to say no to that. There were some issues here, sure. I think we talked about editing that we would have done that would have made the episode a little better. I think 25 minutes, maybe a tad too long for this plot. But I love this show, and immediately was like, I will continue rewatching Laverne and Shirley. It's back on the list of things I'll get through after I finish the A-Team, and it's a green light for me.
Great. Well, that is 4 out of 5, so you definitely get the green light. And I never brought this up at the beginning of the episode, so before I completely close out, which one of you picked this show?
Me.
Me. Me. I repeat the word me.
me.
And so just to give you 10 seconds before we kind of close out, was there any particular reason you wanted to cover it?
I was literally just trying to pick some more shows that were shows like Major Dad and shows that I watched a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we just do a lot of modern stuff, and I wanted to kind of throw something in there that was from the years before.
You know, we said this before. We definitely need to kind of crack into that era a little bit more when we can and just be more aware of that. And to all of you guys listening, if there's shows from that era or any era that you really want us to cover, just let us know. Go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can get in touch with us. Instagram, X, the most likely ways if you want to actually chat with us. Go on there. How'd you find us? What do you want us to do? Things like that. Be sure to rate and review. But again, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. Hit us up. Until next week, thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best. Hello.